Hey everybody, how you doing? Sorry if I'm looking a little unkempt today. Okay, so this is the time of the semester when you get your first assignments back, and it's always a little bit of a tough time for maybe some people or more people, many people. I don't know because it's like really a true first assessment of your work. But again, the idea here is to remember that patience is the key here. Okay, that it's all about how we end up as opposed to where we are now. Okay, so um, perhaps I've been moving a little bit too fast. So, um, I hope by the time you're able to do the rewrites, which are due on February 14th, and everybody really should do them, um, um, that you'll have everything down because you'll be caught up on lectures and that sort of thing. Because it's pretty clear that like we haven't been watching all the lectures or maybe haven't caught everything down. I mean, it's difficult to watch these lectures. I know and watch them on your own time, but you really should watch them. You really have to, and it's clearly evident when they're not watched. Okay, because I see some, real basic stuff that we really should be doing. Okay, and actually, it's not even really necessarily a journalistic issue, but it's some issues with just basic language arts stuff. Okay, so or whatever they would call it in your high schools or whatever. Okay, um, so we have to like basically like make sure you have all that down before we proceed anywhere else. One thing I saw in a few papers is you got to make sure that you do not have a sentence fragment in your story. Okay, I think sometimes people kind of confuse that as like kind of like maybe like creative writing a bit, but really every sentence, especially in news stories are played really pretty straight most of the time. So you really have to have like make sure that your sentence has a noun and a verb. A noun come before the verb as an active voice. Okay. Um, all right. So anyway, there were about 75% of the class had R's. Okay, which means that you have to rewrite the stories. Few had C pluses or C's, and then there were a couple of B's, which is great. Going to my rubric, that means that basically the story is essentially organized. Um, just maybe requires some editing to basically make it clear, maybe a little better focused. Um, maybe there's some issues with the simplicity in the writing itself. Um, so anyway, excuse me for one. I had to stop the camera for a bit there. I had a little bit of an issue here with something that fell down. Anyway, all right, so let's just go over some of this stuff right now. I'm going to share the screen. Actually, I'm going to actually also go over some of the stories that were there, leaving people's names off. Okay, and of course, I made notes to myself. Yes, actually, you know what? Let me just take what I have here and put it on the bigger screen. That's not what I was looking for. Okay. All right. All right. So, all right. So anyway, lack of full names. Actually, I saw that. That was a big one. I saw people. Somebody mentioned the name Mule, but they had no last name. Okay, so that's something I did actually bring up in a previous lecture, and that is as I was dealing with basically the general aspects of a structure of a news story, is that you have to make sure that you have the full name in the story. Okay, I realize again that there are stories where they just have the first name, or but that we're not doing like anonymous stories here, unless you have an issue or maybe like you want to express it to me that the person you're interviewing is actually doesn't want their full name used because even though it's not going to be published, but that's fine. Then that's fine. Just let me know, okay? But um, just don't assume that either. Remember that it's just again the only time it's really done is again when you have like sensitive information that maybe people don't want published or out there, that sort of thing. That's fine. But there are I think almost all of these we could have the full name of the story. And then after that, it's the last name is used on second reference and future reference, okay? So if it was Mule Davis was the name, it'd be Mule Davis would be the way you identify the person first, and then after that, it would be Davis said, okay? With some really long paragraphs. I stretched like for a long time. It's a real turn off to the reader. They don't really feel like digging into that. It's really just kind of natural for them to have like sort of breaks in the story, so that it gives them time, gives them a chance to essentially stop, pause, breathe. Okay. Stories also had a lack of focus, and also on top of that, newness. Again, I've warned about this. I know it's difficult. Probably the most difficult thing to teach, especially early on, is when you have something that's significant in somebody's life, and maybe it happened even like 2 years ago or something. What does it mean now? Okay, what sort of impact does it have now? Okay, lack of depth, not answering those who, what, where, why, when questions. That comes from lack of focus largely. Not answering the questions that need to be asked. Okay, and really like this wasn't too big of an issue because actually the writing itself wasn't that bad, but it was the lack of simplicity. I saw some people just kind of go over the top. Adjectives again are dangerous. Okay. Okay. All right. Again, you don't have to use the word beautiful. This is a matter of actually what they say in journalism is to show, not tell. Don't you be the judge. Let the reader be the judge of what is going on, because they may disagree with it. Okay. That's part of being objective. So if you have a beautiful sky, don't say it's a beautiful sky. Say it's a blue, sunny sky. Okay. That's better reporting, better writing, and more objective. Okay. All right. So let's go to a couple of these stories we have here. Let's go to this one right here. Okay, right here, we have a very long paragraph. Okay. I mean, if you just look at it from here, from a few feet away, you just feel like you really don't want to really even like enter it. But actually, when you actually get into the story, actually is like a decent story. Okay. But it's just not very inviting. Okay. Youssef Rashid, also known as, I can't pronounce it, I'm sorry, is one of the most innovative and ambitious upcoming rappers known in the underground. Okay. Just do that. This is what it gets extrapolated into essentially a Twitter feed. Okay. Or even like an alert on your phone or something like that. This is a way to essentially advertise to people that this is actually a story you should read. They also call it a hook. Okay. Over the span of 2 years from 2020 to 2022, he has reached, this is actually really some significant stuff here. Okay. This is also one of the things I brought up a lot in stories is actually, we want to start attributing our information now. Okay. I didn't not make a big deal about it. I'm just telling people in their first drafts to make, this is where you would do it. So you would say he said, or she, I'm assuming this is where it came from, Yusuf. Okay. She said, I mean, you could put it even in the middle of the sentence. You could also put it at the beginning of the sentence. Okay. Not she said, I'm sorry, he said. Okay. You want to make sure that people know that this came from somewhere. Okay. What you want to avoid with a quote, see how awkward this looks, putting at the front of the paragraph. You want to if you have a quote, you want to it to be its attribution, especially if it's like a long name or something, to be at the end. You want people to actually read the quote before they get to the name. Okay. Because they actually, in this particular case, it's actually the writing, it's actually the quote itself that's more important than the name. Okay. The name goes at the end, especially when you have a name I personally can't pronounce, but I mean, there's literally we just go through here and there's actually one thing after another that actually this turns out to be a good story. Basically, we have, you could argue these are adjectives we don't necessarily need, but innovative and ambitious upcoming rappers. But basically it's all explained here. Okay. Why he is, because the last 2 years, this is what he's done. So we get into who, what, where, why, when. So why and how is he that way? And one of the most ambitious and innovative rappers, upcoming rappers. Well, he had this accomplishment. He had this accomplishment. I mean, it's one thing after another, right? And then, I know this happened 2 years ago, but it's all kind of like jumbled in with this. This happened. And then, and then actually like, what's next? Well, this is what he's doing right now. Okay. He's letting his sound evolve in a different way. He's trying to get out of his comfort zone and try to expand his realm of things. Okay. But see, look at this very long paragraph. I mean, it's just something that really, I mean, when I read that, I feel like I'm going to be reading something academic or something. So, and all you really need to do is just hit that return button and boom, there you are. Okay. All right, let's look at another one. I'm going to spend some time actually looking at some of these stories here. Here's one that was actually written fairly well, but again, it goes into the whole idea of, what happens now? What has happened lately? Okay. A woman received 2 separate hip replacements in 1 year after being diagnosed with arthritis. I mean, that's pretty extraordinary for something like that to happen to an 18-year-old. Okay. But a lot of that happened now. Again, I mean, I just talked about how like maybe like a couple years ago isn't that long ago, but in this particular case it is, because a lot has happened since then. Okay. And one of the things I want to know is, okay, so she had felt pain November of 2020, but that was actually now almost nearing a year and a half ago. Okay. If you actually go down to the bottom of the story, she actually has recovered. And then one of the things we talked about is actually I guess she was afraid she was never going to be able to ski again. Well, here we are now. She's actually looking at possibly skiing again. She's back on her feet. She's a student at Rutgers. She's living her life like similar to the way she lived before she had started having all those hip problems. But it's all the way down at the bottom of the story. This is inspirational, and yes, this is enlightening, but it's all the way at the bottom. By then, you've lost the reader, and the reader doesn't have all the answers to the questions they may have. Like, how is she doing now? Okay. Is she bedridden? Is she in a chair? Is she actually like succeeding? Is she skiing? It's all down in the bottom. Okay. So that I saw a lot of that. Okay. Okay, here's a story where we had a one name, but not a full name. Okay. And actually the one name was actually mentioned throughout the story. Okay. This is the story. I saw some of this too, where essentially something was announced. You don't need to announce something, or this is obviously a story. And this is going to be a story about a mule, about mule. So anyway, so no need for that. Again, like Mule Davis, just using that as a name. Okay. Has done what? Okay. And that way it also gives the story more credibility, because there's a lot of times when people read stories and they read one name and they almost don't believe it. They almost believe maybe the name is even made up, or there's a lot of that, a lot of feeling right now, anti-media sentiment right now. And my dog wants to come in. Hold on one second. There's a feeling that basically, just give me 1 second. I should interrupt because of my dog. Say hi, Lily. There you are. That's my doggy. Okay, she actually kind of joined me. Anyway, all right. So sorry about that. I also I'm all in favor of distractions when they work. Anyway, so let's go back to this. Now, this one was, wow, adjective all over the place. Heart like a lion, strong like Mount Zion. Okay, well, I appreciate the poetry, but in her endeavors, she is a budding creator. She is a budding creator with a soft spot. This is really telling me nothing, really. Okay, and what's also unfortunate is that basically this person actually has accomplished a lot, but it's all the way down here. Or I'm sorry, it's actually starting here. She created a platform in which artists can come together and collaborate while throwing away the position of middleman in the business of art, and subsequently named it Talanta. This is the lead of the story right here. This is actually extraordinary. This is something that not everybody has done. I mean, I especially like to see stories where people are taking like technology and being innovative about it. So what we really needed to do was really write about that, and then really get into the who, what, where, why, when about that. And actually, it's all down here. The basic functioning of the platform is to create visual and detailed information from the database she collected from her friends. Ideally, all artists can now find on the same platform. It's all down here. And the writing is much more simplistic. Isn't that easier to read than reading about Mount Heart of the Lion, Mountain of Strongly, Mount Zion? Okay. So it's all the way down here. And actually, that's an extraordinary story. But because we felt like, which is fine, we had to kind of, I can understand why, talking about her being an innovator, which we already did, musician by definition, all this stuff. We were nearly not given reason to actually read the story and really get in the depth we need to have, because so much of this is here. Adjectives, really kind of over the top a bit. Okay, I have to say, it kind of shortchanges the readers because they're not getting all the. I really want to know like what this is all about. Okay, maybe I want to be a part of it. Maybe I want to copy it. Maybe I want to enjoy it. Maybe I know the person. I want to see how they're succeeding. Okay. All right. Okay, so this is an example of a story that would actually work here. Here we have Joaquin Matty, a freshman at Rutgers University. This is actually a story I got a B. I mean, it needed a little bit of work, that sort of thing. I actually took some stuff out that I felt like needed to be taken out, so I can show you guys. But basically, it says recently became the first Rutgers student to represent the X-Fit Boxing Company, his own very first public fight. Okay, but this happened a month ago. But luckily, the writer, okay, Ashley Morgan, actually goes into basically what this means now. It wasn't. I mean, the landmark is actually fine. I mean, actually, has another adjective, but what she does is she actually backs up the adjective by showing how it was a landmark event. Okay, although Matty did not win, he said the landmark event has completely changed his life by providing him a new outlook of life and boxing. So now we're finding out what's going on now. Okay. Although I didn't win, for me, I take my losses as a lesson experience. Losses will teach me what I did wrong, and I take that as a win. This year this year I will be fighting twice a month, hopefully, and eventually by turning pro by junior year college. He's also been training. Matty's coach currently keeps him extensive training and an intense health regimen, enough to be granted the opportunity to continue representing. All sorts of stuff is happening right now. 6 to 8 week training camp, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so all sorts of things are happening right now. If you just basically ask, what does this mean? Well, I mean, it was a month ago, but how was it a landmark thing? Well, it's just basically kind of changed his whole outlook, his whole regimen, his whole schedule of life. Okay. Then it goes eventually back to the fight itself. While that happened a month ago, basically puts him on the radar. He describes this fight as an important stone. He describes it as a big state tournament where you go to the national championship. Actually, that's probably one thing I would actually just say. Oh yeah, here it is right here. As a freshman with very public fight experience and being able to work, the odds were against Matty. So now we're actually going into background, exactly what happened in the fight. Matty held his ground throughout the match to his experienced opponent, but he later succumbed to his opponent in the third round. Okay, so he lost, but it's not just a story about him losing, it's a story about him turning his life on a dime. Okay. I'll actually probably going to be sharing this with everybody. Okay. Okay. The walk-off quote is actually essentially the story essentially dwindles down. And actually, since the last paragraph is typically the least important paragraph. Okay, so basically what that does is it actually, one of the least important things in a story typically actually is a quote. So you would want to do something along the lines of, maybe you look to the future at the end of the story. He hopes to write more books. And then the last paragraph will say something like, just never have the time to write, ironically, ha ha ha. you said, and then that's basically how a story typically ends, just kind of dwindles out and pans out. Okay. Um, all right. So basically, that's what we want to like do is essentially kind of dwindle the story out. There's no reason to conclude. Also, a lot of times when you actually have something to conclude, that's actually what you're doing in your lead. Okay. All right. You actually essentially, you know, make the statement that basically needs to be made that, to basically identify what the story is about. Okay. All right. So hopefully, like, again, the worksheets that I actually gave you guys, again, hopefully that will actually help you deal with that, help you write a lead. Remember that it does not get written like a headline. It gets written, well, and I talked about that in my previous lecture. It gets written like an actual full sentence. And one thing I probably should have been clear about is that actually, um, just basically write, the leads on a piece, on a Word doc. Okay. Don't try to, like, some people try to write it actually within um, the actual assignment paper itself, and then submit it as a scan or something like that. Don't do that. Just submit it as actual Word doc. Okay. Numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Remember full sentences. Okay. So hopefully that'll help you deal with the idea of like trying to keep things simple, trying to avoid things like, heart like a Mount Lion, Mount Zion, that sort of thing. Okay. Trying to really stay on point. Okay. And the rewrites will be due a week from Monday. Again, I'm recording this actually on Sunday, so this will be due on the 14th, Valentine's Day. Okay. I'm also going to be giving you guys like a little bit more time to deal with the next assignment, so you can actually really concentrate on this. Okay. All right. And said, is there any other questions out there? Okay. So, all right. So let's deal a little bit with essentially the next chapters we had to read, which was chapters 3 and 4. I won't spend a lot of time on that because I really want to make sure you got the gist of what needed to be said here. And what I'm also going to do is I'm actually going to change the name on the story that I just showed you that I actually got to be, and I will show you exactly the kind of story that I actually am looking for in this story. I'll change the name because it deals with bipolar disorder, which I know people are sensitive to. From Joe, just Joe Farrell did that story. Thank you, Joe. But I'll share it as an announcement post, etc. Okay. All right. So anyway, chapter 3 and 4. I'm actually not going to go over too much here, but just basically some of the most basic things I've talked about: simplifying words, sentences, and practice, and paragraphs. Okay. So anyway, a major part of news writing style is simple language. George Orwell, in his classic Politics of the English Language, complained that too often writers replace strong verbs and concrete nouns with abstract phrases. Okay. Such phrases tend to obscure facts and confuse media's audiences. So yes, or they, what they tend to do is, like we saw in that one story, is they do not provide the answers we really need, about what makes that person unique. Okay. It gives you an example of basically simplifying. Here you have an actual really long paragraph. Okay, the mayor said he was happy that the council had passed a resolution to increase the public library tax to provide more funds to expand the library's book collection, to build a website, and to add a new wing to house government. I'm already like losing breath. It's actually, you see, like actually like, if I'm going, um, there's really no need to basically kind of go, use every single word in the English language to explain a point. Okay. The mayor said he was happy that the council had passed a resolution to increase the public library tax to provide more funds to expand the library's book collection, to build a website. I mean, periods are your friends here. Okay. You don't, and also, I mean, it probably just doesn't need to be that many words to say things. Okay. This is just a run of it, but that, and I saw some of this too, where people felt like they had to keep going with a clause, but a period would have kind of stopped people, give people a pause and give them time to catch up. But that amount of the increase was not enough to do everything that has to be done. So everything has to be done. That sounds like a really long way of saying something. Because repairs are needed to the roof of the public library, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. Here's a clearer version. The mayor said he was happy that the council passed a resolution increasing the public library tax. The amount of increase, however, was not enough to do everything that needs to be done. Okay, the tax increase will, see how the periods kind of divide things up and make it clear. Provide funds to expand the library's book collection, build a website, and add a new wing to the House government documents. Other needed work includes repairs to the library's roof. See, periods just kind of made that a lot clearer. Okay. And there were some words that were eliminated to make it shorter. Okay. All right. Eliminating unnecessary words. I saw a lot of this. I saw people actually, one thing you also have to keep in mind is that, like, you don't insert yourself in a story. You're only writing third person here. Okay. So I saw people say like things like, she further told me, well, actually, first of all, don't insert yourself in a story because it's obvious that she's talking to somebody, right? And second of all, there's really no need to say she further states or something like that. Actually, the universal way of attributing is said. That is the best way to attribute something to a story. We can go beyond that sometimes, that's fine. But when you say things like she explained, okay, that actually is a little bit of a subjective word because it makes it sound like, oh, they took care of it, they explained it. Well, maybe they didn't. Maybe their way of phrasing things or wording things is actually meant to be not explaining things. Maybe they're, not getting to the point. Maybe they're distracting, whatever, So the universal objective way of attributing something is using the word said. It's also much simpler to say, okay? All right. Keeping the noun before the verb, okay? Temperatures soar, earthquakes rumble, floods go on a rampage, okay? Again, please avoid these assignments at the end. Chapter 3 isn't really that long, but it basically reinforces the whole idea of simplicity, so please go over it, okay? Because again, I can tell when people aren't really keeping up with things, whether watching a lecture or reading the books to supplement what they say, because it would be reinforced in your writing, okay? The language of news, the effectiveness of words. Again, this goes into the whole idea of like trying to keep things as active, okay? Writers sometimes misunderstand the words they use. Other times they fail to express their ideas clearly and precisely. In such cases, their sentences may state the obvious or impossible or carry unintended, often comical meanings. Consider these examples: the patient refused and So you want to be as clear as possible, okay? Patient refused an autopsy. That's pretty fun. What would that mean really? That would probably mean maybe the brother refused his family refused an autopsy for the blah blah blah. So basically it goes into the whole idea of structure. Okay, Bill threw the ball, he threw the ball, all these, I know it also goes into gerund, okay. But basically the idea is to really try to keep things active, noun before the verb, okay. Anyway, just kind of going through here again, the difference between active voice, the batter hit the ball was hit the batter. We want to write in active voice because again, it's not just a simpler way of saying things, but it is actually, oh, that's funny. I wasn't sharing the screen the whole time. I apologize for that. Anyway, well, you know what? I'll just assume that you're kind of like following along here. Maybe like if you want to go over it again, just maybe go back to, I apologize for that. Maybe go back to the book. I was actually going over some things pretty quickly. So, maybe just like kind of go over the book as I was talking. Here we have run-on sentences. I love to read the books, blah, blah, blah. We, basically a run-on sentences usually like when somebody adds like one too many clauses or something like that, and they feel like they really can't like end the sentence, but periods again are your friends. Okay, commas can be too, because sometimes people just tend to write on and on and on, and they can't find a way to divide it up when it just needs a comma. Okay. This chapter also talks a little bit about how kind of people like kind of fall in love with them writing a little bit. It deals with some of the very basic English stuff, dangling modifiers. Pleased with everyone's papers. The class received. Congratulations. what does that mean? Basically, it's just kind of slang out there and kind of basically doesn't really answer the questions. Okay. All right. Anyway, I think that actually I'm just going to leave those chapters for something that basically for something you to actually kind of read. Cliche, you want to avoid cliches like heart like a mountain lion, Mount, Mount Zion. Slang also talks about the importance of avoiding words like racism. Actually, we saw a lot of that this past week. Profanity, of course. So some publications will print that, but with racism, I mean, really, there's really like an importance to understanding that like that people have different experiences, people from different cultures, different backgrounds, that sort of thing. So we really have to be sensitive to that. And we just saw this past week with Joe Rogan talking about, well, I was just using the N word, blah blah blah, in a certain context, and he was apologizing it. But what it seems to really kind of come across as clueless now to a lot of these people like Joe Rogan or even people like Howard Stern was that any use of this word is offensive. Okay. So you want to really be sensitive to that. Also, like, a term like even like when we refer to people used to be, we would maybe refer to the term people who are black, we would say African Americans. Now, actually, the Associated Press style, from what I understand, is actually black with a capital B. Okay, so it's uppercase, actually like corrected side. I hadn't want some of these papers. Okay. All right. Let's just go to the next thing now. Again, this is just really kind of supplementing what I was talking about. And that is what our next assignment. Oh, also, I'm going to be giving this to you guys too. This actually, again, I'm going to be going a little bit more into depth about exactly what exactly is inside a story. Okay. But I really need you guys to actually read this to really kind of get a better understanding and watch this. I'm going to be sending out the link. This is actually something I believe I recorded a couple of semesters ago. I really need you guys to actually really kind of get a better understanding of like, what's actually in this news story. So I'm going to be sending out this link for you guys to watch. That'll also be part of your homework assignment, is to actually watch this video, because I want to make sure everybody's on the same page as far as like news writing style is concerned. Okay. This actually goes, like I said, a little bit more into depth about what's needed in a news story. I've gone over a little bit about the structure, which essentially, more specific news structure I've talked about, again, is writing a lead and then following up with transitions that basically help break down the lead. Okay, and then anecdotes that help illuminate each transition in the story. So again, you have a story about Fred Davis. Okay. What does he do? He has a platform that helps people on the internet. And then you want to break it down into, okay, so what is it? What does it do? It does this. And then you want to have an anecdote that maybe like kind of like brings a more specific example about what it does. Okay. And then maybe a quote, you follow that with a quote, and then a transition. What else does it do? Another anecdote. Okay. It kind of, again, usually like a slice of life, something that basically gets a little bit more specific. Then another transition. Okay. Maybe in that, maybe kind of a different direction. How did he do it? Again, this is all covered in that video. Okay. Sometimes you can't get anecdotes into a story. So, there basically is a story, especially like a story that's about a crime or whatever, where you can't get as like more specific than the actual just general details. So just basically it's a lead with a bunch of transitions going from one point to the next. Okay. Again, this is all like covered in this video, and I'm going to be sending this out to people. Okay. All right. So let's go to the next assignment. Okay. All right. So the next assignment, and actually I should be going into student view for this. Again, I want you guys to read chapters 5, 6, and 10, which is, actually deals with more of that specific news structure. Okay. Again, the rewrite is due on February 14th, but due before that is Thursday is actually, yes, this is actually something that's happened already. if you're already overdue. But anyway, so the third assignment is actually here now. Okay. And it actually is ideas for the next assignment. It's actually due on Thursday. Okay. And this actually is an extra credit assignment. So what I'm doing is I'm actually looking for ideas for the next assignment. I'm actually not going to assign the next assignment just yet. I wanted you guys to have the time to actually work on your, rewrites, okay? But this one I want you to submit by Thursday, September 10th, and I want you to submit 5 ideas that are Rutgers related. And this is actually going to be this actually deals with essentially the next stuff we're going to be dealing with. And that is actually not only do writers have to write, but they actually have to usually come up with their own ideas. And actually is a good thing because it's something you own. Basically, you come up with your own idea, then you could basically like come up with your own idea and your own questions for it. And it helps you focus, okay? Because maybe you have some idea about that idea already. A lot of times people get their ideas just from listening to other people who aren't involved in news business, okay? I like to talk about how after when 9/11 happened, we had on 9/11, we had somebody come out with a big whiteboard, okay, in the middle of the newsroom with the Bergen Record. And he asked for something like, I think it was like 100 ideas in 5 minutes. And I think we had like 500 ideas in 10 minutes or something like that. I don't remember what it was, but it was something along the lines of like this, and they came up with ideas and they just basically like came up with stuff that was off the top of their head. And so what I'm asking you guys to do is actually come up with 5 ideas that are Rutgers related, okay? So that means being a self-starter, means being independent, come up with your own ideas, okay? Editors will come up with their own ideas too, but usually they go to you first because they really don't want you, they don't really want to spend the time. They want to spend the time actually working to make your stories better, planning to make the news organization a better organization. They don't really want to have to be there holding your hand, doing your work for you, okay? So it's good to actually come up with your own ideas. And what I want you to do is, like I said, 5 story ideas in a list, just be a general list on a Word doc and submit it to this assignment entry, okay? What I'm gonna do is the best idea would be your next grade assignment, okay? And then that will be at extra credit, which means a grade higher on that assignment. That means actually whoever gets that will actually get a grade higher on this 3rd assignment. So if you got like, if you get an A on the assignment, then I'll just add points to your overall score. Essentially, they'll work into your average. So maybe like if you get like a B, if you had like a B early on or a B down the road, that would actually be essentially be lifted to an A or something. Okay. If you get A's throughout the semester, that'll just guarantee your A even more. All right. So anyway, this is the assignment. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick the best one, and whatever the best one is going to be your next assignment, written assignment that'll be due quite possibly the week after, probably on February 21st. Okay. All right. So here's some things though. And when I say best idea also means best idea for us. And we need to basically, this is a follow the instructions kind of assignment too. Okay. So that means that basically, we need to do something we can do in a week. And based on what I saw in the papers, it's not meant to be a shot or a slight. It's got to be something that actually like is workable. Okay. No major investigations. Okay. Like I'm going to go undercover at Broward Commons. I used to get people like that. Or I'm going to go undercover on a bus or something like that and see how people drive badly. Keep it simple and something that's related to students have to deal with on a regular basis. Those are actually the most important stories that people have to do. Not the major investigations, but the stuff they have to deal with on a regular basis. Think of that story as something that can be done in a week, okay? Stories are about people, so the theme of your ideas will require reactions, very preferably from students because professors, bus drivers, people like that are hard to contact. I want you just really to kind of get something there about the Rutgers community and basically maybe something that's on their minds, whether it's COVID or whatever. I'm not going to give it like related or whatever. If you talk about COVID, you probably should be something more specific than that. Okay. But that's just basically something that, is like specific enough and interesting enough that basically affects people's lives, impacts people's lives on a daily basis. Okay. So that again will be due on Thursday, the 10th. All right, everybody. I actually really try to intentionally try to make this like a shorter video than usual so you can really just concentrate on better writing. Thanks very much, guys, and I will be talking to you.